Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about mental mediumship versus physical mediumship. Are they two different things? Absolutely. What prompted me to make this video was recently someone commented on one of my spirit voice recordings on social media that wasn't physical, that wasn't mediumship. So even for me, back when I first started, I didn't understand the difference that there were actually two things, mental mediumship and physical mediumship. Do you have to be a medium to experience physical mediumship? No, you don't. Do you have to be a medium to experience mental mediumship? No, you don't. So let me just say first that I am recording this for my podcast, linking to the afterlife, and also for my YouTube channel where you can see the video. So if you're listening to this on my podcast, only listening, you might want to go to my YouTube channel and also check out it because I'm going to be showing something, I'm going to be showing an example of physical mediumship that I've received. So, first off, what explains mental mediumship? Mental mediumship is anything that goes on inside the head of the medium, meaning a dream, channeling, any readings that this person does. All psychics are doing mental mediumship. So anything inside is mental mediumship. Channeling is mediumship. All the clairs, clairaudient, clairsentient, I don't use those terms, but all of the clairs, meaning anything that you see in your head, anything that you see outside of you, but that is not there for anyone else. So in mental mediumship, no one outside you can see or hear what you are sensing, feeling, or seeing during a reading or even when you're channeling, like prodigies channel spirit. When I was teaching yoga, I channeled my spirit guides. I didn't know back then that I had spirit guides that were yogis, but after I finished a class, I would say to myself, I have no idea where that came from. I don't remember ever learning that sequence. And my students would come up to me and say, "Where did you get that? Where did you learn that?" And I say, jokingly, I would say, "I don't know. I must have channeled it." So I knew what channeling was before I was a medium, but I didn't understand how much that I was practicing when I was teaching yoga and doing a lot of dream analysis and my own work on myself. So that was mental mediumship. Again, anything that goes around outside of you is physical mediumship. Physical mediumship. My spirit voice recordings are physical mediumship, meaning spirit is doing something, is manipulating something so that everybody can hear it, see it, or, well, sense it. You can see it with your own eyes. The spirit voice recordings are coming through using technology that we have now as humans. When it first started, this spirit voice, they called it EVP, they call it ITC. ITC is a technical term that not everybody uses, but people who do this use it, but not everybody's familiar with it. So I don't use it as much. It's it stands for instrumental transcommunication. I call it interdimensional transcommunication. EVP, more of you understand what that means, electronic voice phenomena. That is when a medium or a psychic worker of some sort goes into either a haunted house or any sort of area where the frequency is high, and they record and hear spirit voices. These were done, again, many, many years ago. You can Google all the people that started this sort of spirit voice. They were done through radio. Some of them were done not even plugged in to the wall. They were either battery operated or the radio was unplugged, and spirit voices were still able to communicate with us. So another example of physical mediumship is apports. Apports are when spirit will take something from the physical world, a ring, a key, a feather, anything small, take it up into the non-physical world, and then rematerialize it back into the physical world. Or they can grab something that's already in the non-physical world and materialize it into the physical world. So if you lost a key, this has happened to me many times, you've lost something, can't find it, all of a sudden it appears where you've looked a million times before. I would consider that an apport. So spirit kind of joking with us. I've had pennies drop down from seemingly the sky out of nowhere, and then it lands. That's an apport. An entity or a spirit materializes, dematerializes objects for us. And that's something that anybody could see. It's happened to many people who are not mediums. Another form of physical mediumship is direct voice or a seance. I've had direct voice happen 2 or 3 times, 3 times to me. Once I was in a seance of some sort, and it was in the basement of a spiritualist church, and it was dark in the room, and the medium was sitting in a cabinet, closed off from the rest of us in the room. And he was the channel for this. He was going to be the physical medium for this. And what happened that night was there were voices in the room, there was whistling in the room, and you could hear someone walking in the room. I actually felt an entity or spirit sit on my lap and whistle to me during that. That's a form of physical mediumship, something that a medium is doing so that other people could be involved and see it or hear it. Another form of direct voice, I was in Virginia, early days of my mediumship. I was in my room, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my room, I heard a booming voice that said, "This is George Bernard Shaw." Now, of course, I knew who he was. I've heard of him, had no idea why he was appearing to me. And my response to that was, "And now what?" That was my phone going off. Let me fix that. Now, what do I do with that? And he didn't say anything else. That was all he said. So years go by, and I hear more from George Bernard Shaw. I have a spirit voice where he said his name, but still I don't know why he's with me. I can only assume maybe he's with me because of the writing that I'm doing and that I have not yet done. We'll just assume that, but I don't know the reason. The third time a direct voice came to me was when I was in my car. This is shortly after I acknowledged I was receiving spirit voices through recording devices. I was driving my car, the music was on, I was singing, vibration is high, frequency is high. I've already started believing this and doing this, and all of a sudden a male voice started speaking to me. Wasn't just speaking like George was speaking, he was speaking to me, telling me to do something, instructing me to do something. And I'm listening, but at the same time, I'm saying, is this happening on the radio? Is this just a voice in my car? I called that a direct voice. They were using my frequency. They were probably using the frequency of the radio, but was speaking to me. I did what they asked me to do. I don't know what the result of it was, but I did what they asked me to do. Direct voice. Another form of physical mediumship is an apparition. Kind of goes along like with a seance where a medium is sitting, but what appears in the seance is an actual apparition of a spirit or an entity so that everybody around can see. The medium is in a box or behind a curtain. It's dark, but an apparition will appear. If you search for physical mediumship online, you can find many pictures where ectoplasm, if it's a word you've heard before, will come out of the medium's ears, nose, mouth, and will create an image, a picture. That's happened many times. That's a form of physical mediumship. The last form of physical mediumship I'm going to talk about is spirit precipitation, precipitated mediumship, where spirit draws on cards or draws a picture on an easel. This happened early 1900s. A lot of it happened in spiritualist camps. There were two sisters that did this a lot. They were Lizzie and May Bangs, the Bangs sisters. They are two of my spirit guides. I experienced, although I knew about this, I experienced this myself 10 times sitting with Reverend Hoyt Robinette. And he called them spirit card events. And this is where I'm going to show you a picture. This is a picture of one of the many cards that I received during this event. So this would be a form of physical mediumship where the medium is using his frequency, his spirit guides, our loved ones and our spirit guides in a group event to precipitate art or pictures on a card. This is one of the cards I received, and it is a picture of St. Catherine along with a Jesus statue and a lily. How do these happen? Real quickly, I'll make another video because this would be a whole other video if I was going to talk about these. Basically, the medium takes a tightly woven box, could be straw, could be a wooden box, closed up tight. And in that box, there are many different utensils. There are pencils, there are markers, there are highlighters, anything you could think of. He puts them in a box, puts also blank 3x5 cards like this, like an index card. They're blank in the box also, closes the box. The audience has already written out little billets, they would call them, little notes of who they wanted to come through. So for instance, on my note, I would write my name and then names of my loved ones that I wanted to speak to me during this event. Also one question. And then the medium would hold them in his hands. They're all folded up. The medium is blindfolded, cannot see a thing. And then he starts reading the room. He'll take one card at a time in his hand, and just through the frequency of that alone and his guides speaking to him, he will read the person in the room of the card that he is holding. And then while that's all happening, spirit is in the box, drawing, creating pictures on all the cards. For this night, I received this picture, again, St. Catherine and Jesus with a lily. And on the back of the cards, there will be your name, the person's name, and also the names of their spirit guides and their loved ones. On this one, you can see my name. There's Jerry Hicks, Chief Cochise, which is one of my spirit guides. St. Catherine wrote her name. Metatron, Sai Baba, one of my yogis. Mother Mary wrote her name on this. Dr. Verlicki, one of my spirit guides. And Anne Frank, who's one of my spirit guides, actually wrote her name this time, her full name, Annalise Mary Frank, on this card. So I've gotten these cards, like I said, 10 of them. On the back, all the names of my guides and my loved ones. Not every single one. I myself was curious when I went to the first one. I didn't know a lot about, but I was open. And I had my questions, I had my doubts, but every time I went to one, my doubts were dematerialized. One time I received a name on the back of the card, which was the name of my daughter's boss's, when she was a child, wife who passed away. Now, I would never put this woman's name on my card, wasn't even thinking about this woman. It had been years since this woman had passed, but she had come through for this event and wrote her name on the back of my card. That convinced me, along with a bunch of other things. But I want to say a little bit more just about this one, because I'm keeping this a little bit short. My mother saw this card right after, and a day or so later, I realized that it was the feast of St. Catherine. Like a day later or the day I went, I'm not sure. It was the feast of St. Catherine. Number one, which told me that this was actually St. Catherine. And I'm watching TV. I had looked already. I had Googled Jesus and the Lily. I had Googled St. Catherine. I couldn't find anything. I'm watching TV and there's a special documentary on St. Catherine. I immediately call my mom and she finds it on her TV also. We're watching it together. At one point, there is a flash on the screen and this exact image appears. I'm talking to my mother and I said, "Did you see?" She said, "I did see that. I'm hanging up now." It was the exact image appeared on the screen, this exact image. And then they had said something about how St. Catherine's images were Jesus and the lily. So that's why that's on this card. Okay, that concludes my quick story about physical mediumship and mental mediumship. So anybody can have experiences like all of these without actually being a medium. But mediums, in order to hone these skills, do a lot of work. I'm doing my work on this, which is sitting with my basket filled with utensils. I've had 2 or 3 things appear, but nothing to write home about at this point. It's all about frequency, frequency here and frequency in the world of spirit. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Feel free to ask any questions on any of my social media where I post this video. Take care, guys, and have a wonderful rest of your day.